Was murdered at their home Saturday night. What's the latest on this shocking mystery, and how is it that attorney Daniel Horowitz is still holding up after all this? We'll ask his friend and colleague Mark Geragos, the renowned defense attorney. Ivan Gold, Horowitz's co-counsel in a sensational murder trial. He's been speaking with the grieving lawyer, and defense attorney Michael Cardoza. He and Horowitz represent co-defendants in a pending drug case. Plus Harvey Levin, the attorney and investigative journalist, who spoke today with the tenant on the Horowitz property, who's been interviewed by the police. And CNN's Ted Rowlands with the latest on the investigation, all next on Larry King Live. One program note, Charlize Theron will be with us tomorrow night. Amazing in a new movie. Not bad to look at, I bet. Let's get right to the case at hand and start with Ted Rowlands for an update. What happened?
Well, Larry, what happened was Saturday night, Daniel Horowitz came home about 6 p.m. and called 911, or called the police to report that he had found his wife, Pamela, dead in their home. They were living in a trailer while they were building their dream house in Northern California in the city of Lafayette. They were living in a rural area of Lafayette. They had about 12 acres there. Today, investigators continued what has now been a third full day scouring the crime scene and scouring the acreage around that area. Yesterday, they met with the media saying that all of the options were open in this case. They are looking at many different leads. They have made many different contacts with people in and around that area, but they said they have a lot of work to do. Today, they had no meeting with the media, no updates, and said they will not update the media until there is something, quote, significant. Tonight, most of the lead investigators have gone home. It is pretty much cleared out here at the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office. Presumably nothing will happen tonight. They'll be back at it tomorrow.
Mark Geragos, generally true when a spouse is murdered, the first suspect is the spouse?
Almost always true. In fact, I think in Danny's case, they had him in the back seat of the patrol car for a minute or two before they took him out and they had him handcuffed or whatever else. They've said or stated that he's been very cooperative, and I think people tend to always jump towards somebody who's either a spouse or a family member. That
Any question in your mind that Danny would be involved?
None whatsoever. Danny has nothing to do with this. He adored her. That house that you were taking a look at on the screen, when I first met him, was Judge DeLucchi in Chambers telling me about that house and how it was his dream, and introducing me to Danny, and talking about how much he doted on her.
You know his wife?
I've met her a couple of times up there.
Ivan Gold, how well do you know Danny?
Larry, I know him very, very well. I worked with Dan very, very closely for 13, 14 years. He essentially trained me. He's one of my very best friends. I'm extremely shocked by this. We are all grieving for Dan and Pamela Vitale's family also.
Michael, how well do you know Danny?
I've known him for about 15 years, Larry. I knew him when I was in the district attorney's office in Alameda County, and then when I became a defense attorney, I continued to know Dan. We've done a case together. We were representing co-defendants in a case. We're not social friends, but we were certainly business friends. We'd have, lunches together, but never did go out in the evening with his wife. In fact, I just met his wife last week right before opening statement in the Polk case. That's where he was defending Mrs. Polk for killing her husband.
At 11 p.m. Eastern tonight, a live special on Court TV, Nancy Grace Investigates, as part of it. Nancy spoke with Daniel. Watch your clip.
And I saw her, and everything, I understood everything that I could see. I took it all in. And I knew she was dead. But still, even though I knew, I kneeled down and I touched her just to see if she was okay. And even though it's like I did things, even though I knew it wasn't going to do any good. And then I walked quickly into the house to call 911 on my phone. I dialed it, and it was like my ears were ringing and I couldn't even hear what I was saying. And it didn't matter. I knew then, I just threw down the phone and I got out of there. I didn't want to, because there's like two modes going on. Right now you're seeing the thinking mode. The mode that I was in, I ran out, and then
Ran out to where?
Just to the front door, and I touched her neck again just to be sure. And then I saw her hand, and I just knew from what I know that she wasn't alive. And then I just know that I peeled out my phone, and I knew I had to call the police and tell them. So I dialed the regular police number. And then I just was with her, and I didn't know exactly what I said. In between, you scream, you cry, but I know I just basically sat with her, and I just told her I love you, and you're beautiful, and just whatever things you say to somebody you love, because to me, at that point, all that was there was the person I loved. I mean, it didn't matter anymore, what was around her or the horror. I had just so much time with Pamela. So I just looked at her face, and it was beautiful.
We'll be seeing other clips of that throughout the program. Mark Garagos, they had a suspect. I mean, there's someone that they were saying was threatening, right?
Yeah, there was apparently a restraining order that had been filled out by Dan and never been served, is at least what's
against some kind of a wacko in the neighborhood.
Somebody apparently who was affiliated or living nearby. There's also been stories about various contractors who've had this or that run-ins and disputes with them. Anytime you build a house or remodel a house, I think that goes with the territory, however, so I don't know what that's going to do. There's also the issue of there's somebody that they called that they were looking at down the hill as well. So who knows? I mean, for all you know, it could be completely random. For all you know, it could be somebody who was connected to the practice. You just don't know.
Ivan, what did you meet with Dan today?
Yes, I've talked to him every day, and we've sat and we've talked about everything, life and law and everything else, and it hurts. It really does hurt seeing Dan, who I admire and respect, and look at him like he's a king, and to see him in this condition, it's so painful to see Dan like this, and it's so painful to see the Vitale family. This was the perfect marriage. Their worlds revolved around each other, Larry. They had the dream house. They had their entire lives in front of them. And to see this, nothing could be more painful.
Ivan, does he have a thought as to who might have done it?
Yes, it would be inappropriate for me to say that here, but Dan is pretty sure of who did this crime, who did this to Pamela Vitale. But he can't say it publicly. The investigators, the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department, is doing an excellent job. They are working with Dan, and Dan is working with them. They will solve this crime, Larry. They will solve this crime.
You won't say then if it was the person that they were trying to get the...
It would be inappropriate for me to finger someone. I cannot do that,
Okay.
and Dan cannot do that.
And it sounds like they're waiting for some kind of forensic evidence to come back, and they've got a pretty good idea who they think it is. And all indications are, my guess is they're going to wrap this thing up pretty quickly in terms of making an arrest.
Michael, have you spoken to him?
I have. I've spoken to him the last 2 mornings, and I'll tell you, it was on a very personal level that we spoke. I mean, we really spoke as friends. And, what do you do for a friend in a situation like this? You listen, and you tell him that you're there for him. But one thing that he asked me to do, and that was to be sure that people knew that the sheriffs of Contra Costa County were doing one bang-up job. He said, Michael, they're working 24/7, and I can't give them enough thanks for what they're doing for me here and the way they're aggressively going after the case. But just like with Ivan, I asked him if he had anybody, and I'm not going to say who Dan fingered, but Dan was really strong about who he said he thought did it. And one of the other things he was very emotional and went off tangentially at times, but one of the things he really talked about, he was watching some of the news reports, and there were people that would go on the air and talk about him and his wife as if they knew them a long time, and he really got upset at that. He goes, I don't know why people talk about that when they don't know me. I want people that knew me, that knew Pamela, to talk about her on the air and talk about the love that we had. Like I said, the other day I saw Pamela right before opening statement, and we talked, And one of the things that really jumped out at me, in fact, I teased Dan about it right before opening statement. She said, you know, we went through the construction of this home, and not one time did we have an argument. She said, boy, that really tested the mettle of our relationship, and I knew how much Dan loved me. And Dan walked up at that time, and I teased him, and I said, better lucky than good, Dan. How'd you get such a wonderful woman? I mean, it was the first time that I had met her.
How long they married?
You know, I think it was a short time. Ivan can probably answer that better than I, but I think it was 3 years.
No. They were married 11 years. 11 years. And I'd like to add this.
Better than I.
I'd like to add this too, Larry. In the Susan Polk case, Dan and I were counsel in the People v. Susan Polk. I want to tell you this. Pamela Vitale helped write that opening statement. That's how
let me get a break. I want to pick up on that when we come back. That case was, they threw that out, right? I mean,
mistrial.
No, it was a mistrial was declared.
Mistrial to be retried because of publicity attended to investigators working on it. And that dealt with a woman who had been abused over years and then killed her husband, right?
Allegedly.
It's the defense.
Allegedly. Well, Ted Rollins, I think, spoke with her, and we'll come back and get to that. We'll be right back. Take your calls later. Don't go away.
These
Not in the room, but when
days have passed now. What is going through your head? What do you want to do now?
sort of, you got me in the stage where I'm starting to accept that she's not coming back until maybe today. I just couldn't accept that it was real. You know, I was just constantly, I don't know, I just wasn't processing anything in a real way.
Didn't seem real.
Yeah, and more than that, we would be talking about what happened, and I'd feel like picking up the phone and calling her.
Larry King Live is brought to you by Pacific Life, the power to help you succeed.
Like a human fingerprint, each whale's fluke is unique. At Pacific Life, we know that no two individuals have the same financial goals. For over 135 years, we've used our experience to help millions of Americans reach their goals. Pacific Life, the power to help you succeed.
Lunesta. People everywhere are discovering it. What are you waiting for? Talk to your doctor to see if Lunesta could make a difference for you.
Hey, I'll get this. Besides, I get airline miles. With your business card? Huh.
What is your credit card doing for your small business?
You earn miles on everything you buy? Yeah, from supplies to travel expenses.
The Citi Platinum Select Advantage Business Card. Call now and you could get 1 mile for every dollar you spend. Plus now with 15,000 bonus miles, you could be more than halfway to an award ticket.
I use my miles for car rentals, hotels, on over 25 top airlines, even a well-earned vacation.
Plus, get benefits like account summaries, business discounts, online fraud protection, and more. Call to request the Citi Advantage Business Card. And now, get 15,000 bonus miles. And soon, your miles could take you almost anywhere.
Oh, Paris is great. And flying free? Makes it even better. Smart business decision.
The Citi Advantage Business Card. Call now to request your card and get 15,000 bonus miles.
This November, Ray Romano, Tom Hanks, Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, Ben Stiller, Leonardo DiCaprio, Larry David, Will Ferrell, and many more celebrate the Earth with the funniest people on it. TBS presents Earth to America. Premieres Sunday, November 20th on TBS.
CNN Tomorrow. Beautiful Charlize Theron. From seeing her mother kill her father in self-defense to one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Charlize Theron covers it all and takes your calls. Only on Larry King Live. CNN Tomorrow, 9 Eastern.
Aaron Brown, Anderson Cooper. Newsnight, CNN Tomorrow Night, 10 Eastern.
Hi, I'm David Orrick. My 8-pound Orrick XL Hypoallergenic Plus weighs less than a gallon of milk, yet it creates the suction velocity of a Category 2 hurricane, easily cleaning up even the toughest messes. Most vacuums spew dust into the air that you breathe, but my Orrick Advanced HEPA filtration actually cleans the air as it cleans your floors. And because it's so lightweight, cleaning is a breeze. I invite you to call me now and take the Orrick Challenge. I'll send you my Orrick to try risk-free for 30 days. And as a free gift, I'll also send you my compact canister vacuum, a free 1-year supply of filter bags, and my cord-free steam iron is yours to keep, even if you return the vacuum. And remember, shipping and handling is on me. I'll even pay to ship the vacuum back if you decide not to keep it. You've got nothing to lose, so call me now.
Call 1-888-227-6148.